Welcome everyone. Today we have our another new episode. This is our 542 episode. We will discuss on Metaverse. We have our world famous speaker from around the world. We have our honorable board of advisors, Dr. Talib Rafael from Jordan. We have our honorable speaker, Mr. Marshall. He is climate change activist and he actually developed a business on climate change area. We have our very famous entrepreneurs, and he's a big inspiration for the developing world because with his daffodil group he actually contribute for the millions and million people in Bangladesh. He's honorable chairman of Daffodil University, Dr. Sobur Khan. We have our another famous professor from Silicon Valley, Professor Donalds. Today we're going to discuss about metaverse. We have our very famous serial entrepreneur from Silicon Valley, Professor Sharidan Tatsuno. We have our another speaker from Bangladesh. He is actually expert in energy and human resource development. He is Rafiqul Islam sir. Thank you everyone for joining today's session. As we will discuss about metaverse, and we have our subject matter expert, Professor Sharidan Tatsuno. First, I want to give you a chance, Professor Sharidan Tatsuno.
Okay, very good. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, very good. Well, welcome from San Francisco. I'm a kind of a trip. I wear three hats. I'm an urban planner, urban environmental planner by training. I used to build cities. So I work from reality, not virtual reality first. And I'm also a serial entrepreneur launching my 11th and 12th tech startups. The last three are virtual reality. One, 2015, virtual cities, sustainable cities in the Nordics. So we used Unreal VR gaming engine. The second one is climate action. It's out of Boston called Virtual Gaia. I'll put the links. And then the recent one, I'm a CSO now at a new medical VR. We've been using AI avatars, and now we just developed a virtual reality healthy city we're using the Unreal Engine. So I tend to be very hands-on, pragmatic. I'm not a coder. I actually develop the use cases and the business models to figure out how to make money using VR for enterprise, primarily construction, cities, medicine, and then now stream education. I call STEM plus arts for resilience. So I'm kind of a Silicon Valley guy who approaches things to try to figure out how do you monetize all this technology out there. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Dr. Talib Rafael, can you hear me? Yes, you are actually leading. Can you hear me, Dr. Talib? I cannot hear you. I'm sorry about that. In that situation, I want to give chance Dr. Sobur Khan. He is actually very successful entrepreneur from Bangladesh, especially for developing entrepreneur. He has incubations and he contribute a lot. Sir, how do you think about this metaverse and how actually metaverse create impact in developing world, especially your Daffodil Education Group?
No doubt, as the technological development is going one step to another step, as we love to say that today whatever mobile phone is in our hand, maybe tomorrow morning we'll see that it is the backdated. So a lot of the technological interruption, disruption is going on, new technology is coming. So considering the metaverse, I'm sure that considering the education sector, it is a very great opportunity to utilize. As you know that our student and our teachers, a lot of the cases we always love to say that the theoretical class do not need to come to the physically always. Rather, we can use this technological development. So I'm sure that's the way the technology is moving fast. As we know that the Facebook is recently, they already changed, because if we see the Facebook, the social networking, how they already bringing the people's interest in a social networking. You see, a lot of cases, a lot of the people, especially the Bangladeshi people, the Indian and these subcontinent people, I'm sure that everyone is trying to use the social networking. The why? Because they already bringing this all of these contents, component, effect in such a way so the one platform everything can be visible, everything can interact each other. You know, there are a lot of cases the reaction. There's some comments, feelings, and sometimes that there are live telecast. Everything can be possible so I'm sure that this is the right times to cope up with the technology, because if you not cope up with the technology, I'm sure at the day end we'll be losing in our business, in our operation, in our organization structure. As you are now organizing this online session in the StreamYard, this is also one of the technological development. You see, we are sitting a lot of various countries. We do not know who is sitting in which country. A lot of the time zone is also there. But we are coming in now basing on the technological development that is through the internet. You are sending one link. So based on link, we are click and we are entering the system. So now the thing is that if the metaverse will be more interactive, more technological adoption, and more value addition will be coming. So that is why I should say that the yes, this is the definitely the demandable, or I should say it's an opportunity for us also to cope up with the technological development.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Sabur Khan, sir. Actually, World Talent Economy Forum, we are advocate for modern science, engineering, and technology. We are actually publishing very high quality research papers, and we innovate technology. Next year, March, we are actually launching our one of the major innovation in India. Definitely, I want to invite you all. We are actually advancing the technology of Nikola Tesla. So, what actually Tesla inventing? We are upgrading this technology, and we have our famous scientist, Professor Dr. Adrian David Chiok, Dr. David Levy, all of the famous scientists. They are joining with us, and you will be happy. Around the world, almost 15,000 scientists actually supporting our project, and we are also getting support from Indian government. I want to give special thanks to them, and people like you, those who are very very successful entrepreneurs, and especially for the education industries, they are very very important for us, because we are actually advocating for developing world. We want new technology innovating in developing worlds. So hopefully your advice and guideline will be helpful for World Talent Economy Forum. Mr. Rafiqul Islam, sir, you are from a developing world. You are also run a very big amount of employee. I think more than 5,000 people under your supervision. You are actually go for training and development. Sir, actually, how do you think how modern technology, metaverse? We have people from around the world, from Silicon Valley, from World Tourism Organization. How do you think what type of innovation will be helpful for country like Bangladesh?
Thank you so much. There is no scope to deny any technological development or advancement. At first, I'd like to say that everything that will be better, that will be smarter for our system, we have to embrace at first. As government sector employee, I think the power sector is the most critical, crucial sector, and critical also. We are implementing the smart system, smart grid, smart distribution system, smart generation system gradually. Ultimately, ultimately, this power sector, I think Mr. Sabur Khan is here. He knows very much about power sector, and metaverse is an advanced technology. I think in our power sector, more than 50,000 employee and officers are working here, so that if we adapt and adopt this technology, I think it will be more benefited for our power system. So that I always welcome all these things like metaverse, like blockchain, education, all these things under fourth industrial revolution. um, we would like to be smarter as private sector. Hmm. We are not smarter as like private sector. That is, we have so many barriers, so many formalities. You know pretty well about Bangladesh system, but our government, and especially our power sector, is trying to adapt and adopt new technologies. We are always
Thank you.
welcome that type of.
Thank you.
As a learner, I would like to know and learn many things from you. Thank you so much
Yes,
for
thank you.
giving me the opportunity.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Actually, yesterday we launching our program with Singapore. What actually Singapore thinking? Because Singapore they need new leaders. They believe that we actually more dependent on machine. We need more human. So how World Talent Economy Forum actually help Singapore leaders to be more human? So our objective, how we can modern science, engineering, and technology and human can work together, and we want to make it more progressive and definitely developing world, because in Asia Pacific, around the world, 40% populations actually live in Asia Pacific. Developing world has different story. So I request, like Professor Sharid and Tatsuno, those who from Silicon Valley, you can integrate more with this grassroots level people, and if you go with this bottom-up approach, maybe it will be more helpful. Because let's say my friend Dr. Talib, when he was in Jordan, I find that he has a lot of problem with internet. I do not want to see that. We want more internet access for the Jordan people. Dr. Talib, what you want to add, because you are actually leader for global tourism industries. You are actually developing cities and everything around the world. I know that tomorrow you will go to Dubai. So how actually metaverse will be helpful for the tourism industry? What do you think?
Am I heard? Am I heard?
Yes,
Am I
yes, you
heard?
can.
Good, thank
Yes.
you. Good, good. Finally, technology is working in this part of the world, at least. Sharif, I see no contradiction between being human and depending on machines. I think that the story of mankind and technology is a long-term story. When man invented fire thousands of years ago, it took so many centuries for fire departments to emerge from the society. But that's the outcome of inventions. So I think that we should trust the invention. We should trust the human beings that are inventing these things. We should not say that this is inhuman at all. I think every technology advancement has its own benefits and disbenefits, has its own goods and bads. The goods will prevail eventually because mankind is always looking for the good. I'm always a very optimistic person. I believe in the good of man. So I think the metaverse will prevail, like Bitcoins and all the cryptocurrencies. They will prevail, whether we like it or not. We can't stop it. We just need to be more adaptable, more adjustable to it. We need to make sure that the whole world rallies around one thing, not about too many things, and not create a conflict between the developing and the developed world in that. Thank you so much, Sharif.
Thank you, Dr. Talib. Professor Donald, you are from Silicon Valley. What you want to add for this dialogue, metaverse, and how this metaverse will be helpful for the developing world? And what is the benefit to engage with this kind of technology we have?
Well, I want to add, just say something about what Dr. Talib just said. Is I don't think that the question is so much whether it's good or bad. There's also many technologies that have we've tried and haven't worked out. I mean, it's a matter of the question is is it something that's really going to work, or is it something that we get excited about and then it turns out to just kind of fizzle? And I right now we're not technologically capable of doing the kinds of things that we think we claim that the metaverse can do. On one hand, but what if we think of the metaverse as the way it's defined in Snow Crash, the book where the idea of the metaverse came from? It's a science fiction book by Neil Stephenson. We do a lot of science fiction in this forum, and in it, it's basically a persistent world where you live in avatars, which can be of varying sophistication. Obviously, the perfect avatar, you'd look exactly like a human being, and you'd be able to have human expressions and human body language and all the kinds of things like that. But the technology to do that is a long way away. We're still groping with the technology to get simple avatars to be able to move in three-dimensional space in a way that's convincing. But to the degree that we can do it, we've already done it. Grand Theft Auto and things like that do that. So we've had a metaverse in one sense for a while. So then the question gets to be, the other kind of drawback with it right now is in order to do virtual reality, there's these very heavy, very expensive virtual reality goggles that you have to buy, at least from to use Facebook's one. And people have been not able to use them for more than a couple of hours. So, I mean, I believe that the technology will get there eventually, but right now it's a ways in the future. And so from the developing world, spending the money on developing the technology is probably not a reasonable thing to do, because the Facebook and others will be spending the money on developing the technology and bringing the technology farther. So what the developing world is probably better off doing is doing what Sheridan has talked about. What he does is developing the use cases and trying to figure out how the technology can be used to do specific tasks within your world. And interestingly enough, when you think about it, that isn't really a technology issue. That's a social issue. That's a question of how people work together. Of course, you have to use the technology, so you need to be sophisticated enough with the technology that you can actually use it. But you also have to be able to understand how human beings work together. There's a technology that's, in a sense, a forerunner of the metaverse called Second Life. And in Second Life, they had an economist to try and keep the currency stable. And people would create businesses in Second Life and actually make a living, building houses for people in Second Life and making clothes for people in Second Life. So being able to organize the worlds, the metaverses that might happen. I've been just writing about and getting to start to think that besides people learning STEM, which kind of puts you into a kind of a worker role. Like if you're into STEM, you're a very good employee, but you've got to remember that Steve Jobs, what he studied in college was calligraphy. And I just was reading that Peter Thiel studied philosophy. And if you start looking at some of these people who are really making a difference, he studied philosophy and law. They weren't engineers. They didn't do STEM. I've been getting the idea of what I'm thinking of CAPER, I call it: communication, art, philosophy, empathy, and resilience. And you can do both. It's not a matter of one or the other, because clearly you need to make a living. No, actually, the people who study those can be managers, and they can be the people who make the worlds in the metaverse as it evolves. But I think for the developing world, you need to be realistic and understand that this is something that's evolving, and maybe and really watch what's happening and realize how much hype there is. Because if you read an article and it'll have a headline that's so exciting, but then read the whole article, because it'll say, yeah, but we have this one little problem that we need to fix. And remember that you do the easy stuff first, and then you leave the hard stuff for later. And so that little problem that they have to fix is the hardest problem. And so it may be quite a while before that hardest problem gets fixed. The reason that it isn't fixed is because they might not have the slightest idea how to fix it. So be cautious in that respect. So
thank you.
That's my advice.
Thank you. Mr. Marshall, you are climate change activist. Also, you are our honorable board of advisors. Actually, what do you think? What do you think about Metaverse? How it will be helpful for climate change related projects, and how it can be helpful for us?
Well, that's an excellent question, Sharif, and thank you for having me on this panel. Um, I think there's a lot of issues for Metaverse. It is considered a combination of a lot of different things. The fact that Facebook took on the name Meta because of Metaverse is not. A lot of people think they just changed their name because of Metaverse coming into the what's coming into the marketplace. But you have to remember, Facebook doesn't only just Facebook; it also owns WhatsApp, Messenger, and Instagram. And so it saw. I think that they saw a convergence of these technologies, and they aligned it with the concept of metaverse. And a lot of the speakers here have already dealt with the issue in many realms. I mean, Donald brought up the issue of where it originated in science fiction in that novel, which I read a long time ago. And it's also interesting in that it first got, I think, its big launch in video games. And I think one of our speakers spoke to that. It's essentially a virtual reality concept, and it has both a hardware and software component to it. I think we've talked about the current feasibility of metaverse and how would one use that? Let's say in my realm, which is climate change issues, climate restoration, climate repair. There's probably a likelihood that it's going to play a big role in it at some point. But right now, as a lot of the speakers have written about, or have talked about, not written about, but talked about, metaverse is on the precipice of getting going. It's adoption. It's an early adoption stage as an innovation, and there's a lot of different issues. There's user safety issues. I think it was Donald that mentioned that you can only be on for like 2 hours in a Facebook, Google, not Google, but Facebook metaverse type system. There are social issues aligned with it. In 1992, there was the thing that talked about it was snow crash, and I think they spoke about that. There's a lot of different issues here. I would say, with regard to climate change, like any other innovation, it'll probably be adopted and used. Right now, what we're doing is we're integrating blockchain and augmented reality, which is kind of a mixture of some of this metaverse concept. I think we're at early stages with this, Sharif, and I do foresee that at some point in time, the costs of metaverse technology and applications will lower, and people will invest in it. But as Donald pointed out, it's a little too soon for folks like us to devote our assets and resources into that unless we have something that's practical to use. We're devoting our assets and resources into the technologies that actually convert organic and inorganic waste into products that can reduce more environmental impacts. And I think the future of metaverse with this topic can be a great opportunity for the developing world, Sharif, for places like Malaysia, Bangladesh, and other countries, that it has an opportunity for, like the panel that's on here now. We have people from all sorts of parts of the developing world that can actually have expertise and background and take an advantage of that. I think one of the parts or issues will probably be funding, but that's like any other technology. So it's adoption of innovation, and it follows a normal distribution curve. And in this case, I think the normal distribution curve has some kurtosis shifted to the right. So it's a little conservative on the adoption. But as we saw with Facebook, Facebook is adopting even the name Meta because of Metaverse. And I think that's where they're heading, and they're going to be throwing a lot of money into it. They already are. So I think that as we see that, there'll be opportunities for other players, especially in the developing world, to participate in this. And as far as the climate crisis, it should hopefully it will bring tools to the table that will help us accelerate the adoption of climate restoration, climate repair.
Thank you. Dr. Sobur Kansar, I'm actually a big fan of your work. I know you have engagement with Daffodil IT. Maybe you started your entrepreneurial journey with computer business. Then you develop your huge business, this university, Daffodil University, and your group of business. Sir, my major concern, because we are advocate for modern science, engineering, and technology, we are working with many developing nations youth communities, especially enhancing their capacity for research and innovation. Yes, developing world have they have strong dependency on largest company from Silicon Valley or from Europe or other countries like from China. What do you think? What is your master plan? Because you are a innovator, you are an entrepreneur. How developing nations can develop their own technology, their own research hub? What do you think? Is it practically possible, or how we can collaborate more for research and innovation?
No, thank you very much. As I think this Marshall is also mentioned that augmented reality, virtual reality, and the game and other area. I think this developing country has immense opportunity, especially metaverse can be utilized in the entertainment area, because the entertainment area there is a lot of this technological that is component is needed to get the attention of the audience. At the same time, business operation also, if we consider the business operation, the lot of cases it is not possible to show the lot of the product or lot of the premises physically. So the augmented reality and these sorts of operation can easily can integrate it through this metaverse technology. So the business operation, those which is very relevant to this sorts of area, I think business houses can get in the very benefit. And of course, as a developing country, Bangladesh has the immense opportunity. As I firstly mentioned that, as I personally also involved in the education and training area. I think due to the cause of the pandemic, the lot of the restriction, a lot of the in-person gathering, forced our education institute to adapt the e-learning or the blending learning, LMS, digital content. These sorts of lot of factors coming. So this is the one of the things that our educational society, that is the school teachers, parents, everyone is now understood how they should utilize the virtual space, cloud facilities, and other things they also learn between this time. So I'm sure that educational facility, as I mentioned, that theoretical activities, practical activities, these sorts of activities also can be involved utilizing the metaverse facilities in the education and training area. And that in customer experience, a lot of cases, that we are flying or we are going to the restaurant or we are visiting to the some of the premises, or maybe we are getting some online product. After this getting the product, I'm sure there's the owner or the operator always love to know the exactly the customer experience. So in this area also, I'm sure that it has a very good opportunity to utilize this metaverse, like automakers could offer test drivers in an extended reality setting. That's if you're selling the car, I think you don't need to call the customer. You can just give the test drive and giving the virtual reality, so easily he or she can understand. And of course, the facility what we are using, the work meetings, I think now we are meeting utilizing this online facility, so everyone know it, so I don't like to talk more about it. At the same time, that the digital marketing or advertising, branding, marketing opportunity, these sorts of facilities is also coming very rapidly. And everyone is trying to promote their product through this internet platform, social networking, SEO, mobility, and a lot of this facility is there interested to market. I think this we can easily see that how the Walt Disney is a long time leader for this area. So I think this Walt Disney is one of the great example how they utilize this technology, and they are also investing a lot of money in this area. And of course, the digital location. I hope that everybody you understand that nowadays, I think this earlier it was the one of the common trend that we need a very good office setup, resources, people, everything. But now the digital location and also the integrated all of the location facility, like the Web3 and these sorts of virtual marketplace and these sorts of matter also will be the playing the one of the key role, as this meta market. I'm sure that's a metaverse, meta market. These sorts of facility will be coming as much as possible, so that the new entrepreneur or the startup also can get benefit. And of course, the new streamline. If we consider the new streamline, I think this the Netflix and the lot of the other facilities. So how they already bringing this to new revenue. I think if you consider our clothing, I think you see that it's a fashion. There will be revolutionary changing will be coming in the fashion design. That from this clothing, maybe a lot of accessories will be integrated. Maybe we are using the button, maybe we are using the collar, maybe we are using this lot of the cuffs. But I think that these sorts of device, these sorts of components will be changing through this digital transformation. So maybe in the near future, whatever buttons we are using, maybe it will be one of the component of the digital device. Maybe it will be one mobile phone. Maybe it will be another device. So a lot of the device also we can using when we will be using our cloth and our operation. And definitely, the major thing is connected work experience. We need the connection. How we should say, suppose we are sitting in other places, we understood that we are in the one frame. I think in future, I think presently already is also available due to using the metaverse. I think we'll be sitting in such a way, looks like we are sitting in a one room. I think maybe we are getting the smell also, and everything we are know each other using this connected work experience through this metaverse technology. As you know, that a lot of the big companies already declare that they don't bother that if staff is coming to the office or not. Rather, they are worried about the contribution or the commitment of the staff. So anyway, I think there is a lot of this. We cannot imagine. The lot of the new technology will be coming, new innovation will be coming, which we cannot imagine right now. But again, I think our new startup, new young innovator, they will be working rapidly and find out the best practices, find out the best technological merging, and you give us the some better product and opportunity which we do not know right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sabur Khan. Rafiqul Islam sir, we just hear from the private sector, from developing world, from Bangladesh. Uh, this is your turn. You are from government agencies.
Thank you. Thank
What's
you.
actually government doing right now? What is the new thing they are
Government,
innovating?
just government is trying to adapt all these technologies. It will take time. As Mr. Sabur Khan mentioned that about wearable internet, implantable technologies, these are most advanced technologies that will be adopted in every space of life or every space of workplace. Yeah. I would like to mention here that actually I am amazed to hear all this thing about metaverse. And as technology leader, our Mr. Sabur Khan sir, may I take the opportunity to help your assistance in our power sector? Would you kindly advise or consult us how do we adapt that type of technology in our system, ranging from generation to end user, that is customer service, our smart distribution system, smart grid system. I would like to request you all, and often I will bother you all experts requesting to help us at least
Definitely, Mr.
to
Rafi,
assist our government sector.
we'll love to be cooperative. We love to
Um,
cooperate with each other.
you
Sure.
know, this is $1 trillion investment sector, power sector. Average project size is $2-3 billion. Our project 2-3 billion.
Yes.
If we increase our efficiency at least 0.05%, that will be $1 million saving in our national economy. In that case, as a Bangladeshi and and a patriot, Mr. Sabur Khan, I will I would like to request you to will invite you, will request you, Mr. Sharif also, and all this expert mm, for the betterment of our sector will
Thank you.
accept your advice. I
Thank
am
you, sir.
just a learner in this session. I'm
Yeah.
not an expert. I'm just a learner in this session.
Yes, sir, you will be happy that World Talent Economy Forum we are launching. I already declared that Nikola Tesla technology. Tesla actually famous for energy sector innovations. So we are uplifting the technology with many famous scientists. So hopefully it will be helpful for the developing world. That is our objective. We want to grow together with the help of developed worlds. We want to minimize the gap. So the more we transfer our knowledge, our technology, we can minimize the gap. Professor Sharidan Tarsano, lot of questions actually come from audience, and you get, I think, at least a plot from developing world, both from private sector and from government sectors. Uh, what is your views? How metaverse, AR, VR can be integrated and can be helpful for the global community, and especially I have a concern how it create more opportunity for youth especially job sectors and startup and innovation area.
Okay, very good. I'll jump around. First of all, I'll let you know we're working with Africa already for youth. So Africa probably or could leapfrog the United States and Asia because they're pretty hungry and they're moving fast and they're all on mobile phones already. So don't underestimate developing nations. One thing I've learned is they usually exceed you. Little background, Google Earth, I met in 2013. They used Android phones in India and Amazon. They helped save the Amazon jungle by giving free phones to children who taught the elders within 20 minutes. And they'd never seen a phone before. And they used it to spot illegal loggers coming in. And they showed the before and after, so the whole forest. And then only the tribal land was existing, everything else is stripped clean. So they said that it didn't take much time for the tribal people to learn how to use smartphones. They did it 5 years ago or 6, 7 years ago. In India, same thing. There was garbage collection. Citizens were complaining that politicians were lying, that they weren't cleaning up after the election. So they gave it to the children again. Children went running around, time stamp, geolocated, and they showed all the garbage piling up in their towns and villages after the election. So, they had all the data to prove that the politicians weren't doing their job. So, I mean, you don't need headsets. That's the biggest myth that the VR industry has promoted. It shot itself in the foot. On my virtuality company, nobody had headsets practically besides us. So we never used it. We designed everything for flat panels, tablets, smartphones, PCs, big televisions, projectors. And we allowed everybody to interact with it just using the flat panel. So for pinching and for big televisions, hand controller, game controller. So you have to be careful. I think the technology is moving so fast. I wouldn't worry about it too much, frankly. And the big game changer is China, because you all want consumer cheap products. Well, it's China. There's going to be hundreds of Chinese companies, clones, coming in really fast, like they did with GoPro. GoPro got wiped out in 6 months when the Chinese came in. This time it's going to be no different. As soon as something hits, the Chinese will be there, hundreds of them. And they'll be they'll be underpricing. So I wouldn't worry about the technology and the pricing, because we're getting to the price point. Now, if you look at technology, it always starts with, military, Pentagon, all the militaries, and then government, NASA, space. And then it gets into large enterprise, what we were doing back in 2015. And then you get into smaller businesses, and consumers last. However, this time, the world is moving a lot faster. We have billions of people using smartphones. So, and as even kids in Amazon in India who had never used a smartphone figured it out in 5 to 10 minutes. So I think this idea of extensive training and everything, it's overdone. I think, frankly, what you should do is just provide the smartphones for free. Say, here's the task. We'll show you some basic functionality. You guys figure it out. And surprisingly, all the children figured it out, and they taught everybody. And then they had to teach the elders, because the elders are kind of slow with technology. So it's going to be the reverse this time. Not top-down education, bottom-up. In other words, enable the young people. Just give them free, connectivity and things. You don't have to do the whole country. My advice is you start with a hotspot. You go at a school or government or public library, provide connectivity so they have it. Give out some free phones, and then say, okay, here's what we'd like to do. Figure it out. And so, like in India, there was this garbage piling up. Run around, take pictures of it. They figured it out. The children figured out every garbage pile in the village within a couple of hours, because they already knew. So it's not like you have to teach children. They're very smart. They're very creative. That's one thing we did learn. Now, the other thing, too, is that we started with enterprise. So I know everybody wants to do like Fortnite and all this entertainment, but you know what? Unless you're a celebrity and you got the marketing budget, it's very expensive. It's a hit-driven business. You're not going to make too much money. Even if you train in VR, you're probably going to get hired by enterprise. And so the supply chain distribution channel is huge. We're working with a Mexican retailer. They're called Liverpool. they're one of the largest retail chains, but they want to use it for their supply chain analysis because we can use VR, 2D or 3D, and then we have NASA data and NOAA data for all the climate data. But they want to update. They're going to integrate all their product movement and shipment data, so you could show products moving around on a flat GIS map, or if you want 3D. Again, the question is why use 3D? And I mean, it's in urban planning, it's useful because you have to look at things in 3D, or heart operations, you need to use 3D. A lot of the stuff, for like cities, flat is good enough. Just use your flat panels and your PCs. You don't need to do anything fancy. I think the value add is in VR, though, in 3D, you can do things you can't do in a flat map or just flat images. For example, HTC funded us 2017 to do the Nobel Prize for Medicine 2017 on circadian rhythms. And so we worked with the 3 Nobel laureates who narrated it and gave us the scientific accuracy. And HTC wanted to break away this idea that, VR is like just gaming. It's like running gun shooting games, which most parents and educators oppose. And they wanted to show that the real application is simulation. So if you really think about VR, for example, it's a simulator, like a flight simulator for trained pilots, or for manufacturing, or for car design. It's just a simulator. So I think if you change the terminology, it'll be acceptable to adults and to teachers. Right now, I see a lot of kickback because all we see is running gun games from Hollywood and movies, and in the real world, we don't do that at all. So I guess the only time we would do violent stuff is we show climate disasters. So we showed, we did hurricanes using Unreal, hurricanes, flooding, sea rise, fires, explosions. We did all that for safety training and planning. So I think the only area where we use violent VR was for climate disasters, which are actually compelling. One that we did, which is relevant for Bangladesh, is in Copenhagen. We showed Copenhagen port, and then we showed sea rise at 1 foot per second, and Copenhagen disappeared in 30 seconds under 30 feet of water. And you could stand anywhere in any building, and that's when 3D is useful. So we watched even the tall buildings disappear half underwater. We did flooding. So I think that would be a really valuable use case. This is showing typhoons coming in, flooding villages in Bangladesh, and how you would future-proof or storm-proof your cities and communities. So I think if you, again, it comes down to use cases. I mean, we did it for everything. We did it for, entertainment, shopping, music. We did fake virtual auditoriums. We did it for medical. We did it for supply chains. So you can do it for anything you want. I guess that's why I keep saying it comes back to use case. What do you really need that for? And then why do you need 3D, not 2D? A lot of stuff you just use 2D. Okay, but why use 3D? And fortunately, it's free. Unity and Unreal, they're free in the beginning, especially for education. And then later, if you make money on it, they charge you a certain percentage of the sales. But that's totally available for any child who wants. So I think my advice in hindsight is, here's the steps I would do. But is connectivity provided at the school, government, a library, somewhere where they can get it for free. People can use AR apps now, so just play with that. And then use the flat displays first. Design everything for flat displays. Don't try to require headsets because nobody has it anyway. Get the universities involved because they have the most technical people who are savvy, and then they could train and work with the children. And then the key is going to be building 3D libraries of assets. It doesn't matter, anything you want. Because we usually drop and drag. We don't like when we do cities, we don't build whole buildings. Just the architects just drop and drag. For parks and things, we just grab 3D trees on and we buy it for a couple of dollars and drop and drag. So a lot of it's drop and drag. So the 3D libraries will be really valuable for that you can build for anything for culture, arts, music, whatever you want. But then it comes down to education and training. And then again, I do believe that children are going to be much faster and smarter, more creative than you can imagine. We're always stunned by them. Let me give you one example. We hired a gamer, 24-year-old kid, unemployed, said, we want to build this regenerative village from Stanford, so please do it. He did it by himself in 2 weeks in detail using the Unreal, which he taught himself in 2 weeks. And it was like 4 blocks of detail. And we were stunned because, for adults, it would have taken us 6 months. So one thing I did learn is that children will learn much faster than all of us. And that's the saving grace, though. And so I think Asia and Africa and all these, they're very rich with talent that's not tapped. And so all you do is just provide the tools and let them go at it. And I think, you'll be fine.
Thank you, Professor. That's why we developed this talent economy. We know we have many talented around Asia and Africa and around the developing world. So we try to help these talented peoples, and they can utilize our content, they can develop their startup, they can develop case study, they can do research publications, and we are supporting actually all of the talented. Dr. Talib Rafael, role of politician, this is very important. I know that you are our honorable prime ministers, honorable prime minister Sheikh Hasina, you visit her in Bangladesh, and you actually very good friends of many influential political leaders around the world. So role of politician, how they can play a role to develop better world. What is your advice? Sir, I cannot hear you. Sorry, I cannot. Sir, you can join again, no problem. You can join again. Okay, I think he will join. Professor Donald, what is your advice for the youth for developing their skills and knowledge for metaverse and this kind of modern technology?
Well, Sheridan always has great ideas because he's got so much experience. I will say that an incremental approach like that is kind of what you have to do right now.
Am I heard now?
Oh,
yes,
okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Professor Donald, you want to give chance, Dr. Talib?
Yeah, let's switch to Dr. Talib. I want to
Dr. Talib, yes,
Thank you,
role
thank you,
of political leader for futuristic leadership.
Okay. I think what Mr. Rafiq al-Islam said is very important. We're not the experts here. I'm not an expert. I'm just a political leader. I see the big picture. I don't see the details of it. I think what we heard now is very important. We have to trust our new generation. That's what we need to do. We don't need to invest so much money or effort into this. Simply have to trust the new generation. They will know how to do. They're better than us. The newer generation is much better than we are. That's for sure. I know that very well. You all know that. I think our last speaker emphasized this very well. Now, what do we need to do as leaders? We need to move forward, embracing the technology and supporting it, but without having to invest so much into it, because it's going to happen whether we like it or not. The new generation is adapting it, whether we like it or not. And things are going to be sorted out as they come along. I think Professor Donald said something about most of the problems that are tricky will come at the end. That's right. But these problems will not stop us from progressing at all. Now, that's what I wanted to say. Thank you so much, Sharif, for now.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Talib. Professor Donald.
Well, I agree. We're definitely moving forward. And as I was saying, the incremental approach that Sheridan's talking about makes a lot of sense. The glasses will get better. We will get better at three-dimensional rendering. Right now, the ability to render in 3 dimensions the way that we'd like to be able to. It's just not here yet. But the GPU type chips, the possibility of memristors and other technology is there. So I think it's almost inevitable that we'll be able to do this at some point in the future. I think that specifically the metaverse is the three-dimensional world, the persistent three-dimensional worlds. And sticking to that. But I think I'm really interested in both education and how it can be used within a organizational context. And I've been a teacher or in industry for forever, and one of the things that's really difficult with online teaching is, as a good teacher, is watching his students like a hawk. I mean, you're every time as you speak and as you teach, you're looking at your students. You're looking at their faces and their body language to make 100% sure that they're understanding what you say, and that they're awake. You're not boring them. That they're not zoning out. That you're not. It's feedback, and your student. You have to set up a situation where your students are interacting with you. If your students aren't asking you questions and they're not leaning forward occasionally, and you don't switch have exercises to switch to so that you can keep them awake and things like that, they're not going to learn anything. And so that's one of the problems with online learning, is that you can't get that feedback as much. So in theory, if the metaverse was the way that we'd like it to be, you could be able to get that kind of feedback, and so it could enhance education quite a bit, and that would be delightful. When it comes to how it could work together, I do a lot of work in Finland, and I'm part of a group called Oasis at the University of Oulu, and it's information systems. And information systems is the interface between humans and computers. And my area is more the social element, like how groups of people work with computers. And there's a whole area of expertise where we look at that. And so there are tools to be able to go in and examine what people do, and to try and find out how they react and how to work together. And it has to be iterative. You have to realize that you can't just design something and have it work, because hopefully you try, but you have to understand with technology that failure is a good thing. And Silicon Valley is based on failure. We have, for every company that you hear that's worked, that's gotten famous, there are 1,000 companies that have failed. I'm pretty sure that's about the ratio. And the people that started the companies don't fail, because people will say, "Oh, really want this person? They've learned something." There's people who've gone bankrupt 3 times, and investors will still invest in them. It's not a stigma. It's like a dueling scar. It shows you're out there actually doing things. You're actually engaging with the world and learning. And so as you develop this, that's what I was saying, is that you probably don't want to invest in actually developing the technology, but you want to do the kind of thing that Sheridan was talking about, is building the libraries, building expanding expanding the worlds that you have and do what Rafi, I don't know how to pronounce it, Rafi,
Rafiqul Islam.
yes, from
Yes.
the gentleman from the energy company is was talking about, and I want to just end with saying, years ago I was in Finland and I was talking to a company. They changed their name, but it's Valmet at the time, and they make paper manufacturing plants, and they were at the time the second biggest company in Finland after Nokia, and they may be the biggest now that Nokia has shrunk so much. And all the way back in, was about 2004, 2003, they were already having their engineers collaborate all over the world because they had plants everywhere, China, Africa, everywhere. They were having their engineers collaborate on design and working on these plants over basically telephone. It was the early internet. I mean, the internet existed over the internet. And that could be an amazing thing when you start to figure out how you can have teams of people collaborating, making actual, making stuff. And I think that would be a wonderful example, a concrete example of the kind of thing that you can do with the internet, with the metaverse as it starts to develop, is collaboration on things that you kind of have to look at in order to be able to build together as a team. And so that's what I'm going to say right now.
Thank you, Professor Donald. Mr. Marshall, what's your concluding remarks for today's sessions, and in future how we can contribute more?
Well, I think this has been an excellent session, Sharif. There's a question in the comments section from Anika Shams. What new dimensions will the metaverse open for sustainability? And I'd like to answer that question for sure, and then give you my concluding remarks. I think the biggest challenge that sustainability has right now, and I think our friend from the energy company or energy sector would agree probably, is that scalability is the big issue. Right now, there are lots of to create sustainability to go forward. Our approach is to take waste of all kinds, both organic and inorganic, and convert it into materials and products that actually enhance and reduce environmental impacts. So that is clean up water, at the same time create more power without creating more pollution, reduce GHG emissions, and improve soil health and also livestock health, well, as along with other environmental impacts. The way to do that up till now has been pretty much constrained by the technology that we have and the communications technology. My team is both in Silicon Valley, not far from our two panelists here, and also in Italy and throughout the United States and other parts of the world. We have joint ventures in Jalisco, Mexico, we have Hawaii, we have in Canada, we have in Colombia, South America, and other parts of the world. So in order to bring that communication set together, but also to work together, the metaverse would be a great tool to bring to fruition. And I think, as was pointed out by all the panelists here, it's a concept and a technology and an implementation whose time is about to come. It's on the precipice if it's not already occurring. In fact, as Sheridan pointed out, there are apps out there for these types of applications. They're not necessarily where we all want them to be, but I also like the concept of having the children adopt them sooner rather than later. The one thing is, my grandson, when he was 3 years old, he's now 11, was able to tell his father, who's a banker, how to better use his tablet than he could use it. And he kept saying, Dad, what's wrong with you? Don't you know how to use this thing? And that's a 3-year-old. So you can just imagine what 10-year-olds, 11-year-olds, and 18-year-olds and 20-year-olds can do and bring to the table. To answer the question about what dimensions will Metaverse open for sustainability, I think it will open tremendous amount of dimensions. Metaverse is a tool or a system that probably bring greater sense of identifying issues and problems and overcoming them. That's basically.
Mr. Marshall?
We lost him.
Yes, I'm sorry about that. Dr. Sabur Khan, what's your concluding remarks?
You
for
can
today's
hear me.
session?
Well,
Hopefully
my-
you can hear me. Hopefully you can hear me. So,
Yes, Mr. Marshall, yes.
so basically, my concluding remarks are that the metaverse is another set of concepts and tools and implementation and technology that people will be able to use in the for future. And I'd like to collaborate with anybody out there. We have technology that is scaled, that can make a difference, both in power, energy, and reduction of environmental impacts. That's my concluding remarks, Sharif.
Thank
And thank you for having
Mr.
us.
Marshall. Thank you, Dr. Sabur Khan.
Thank you, Mr. Sharif. I think all of the good discussion is going on, as we must believe it. The term metaverse is going to be very popular. It's going to be very buzzword also, especially when Facebook announcing the rebranding of Meta. But we believe it that in 1992 it was also in this one Nepal. Mr. Neil is also announcing the snow crash. One of his research, he already mentioned about the metaverse. But now, why metaverse is going to be popular, as a lot of the point already we discussed. I think this is one of the factor is that because the cryptocurrency, digital currency, these sorts of digital currency will be very popular in near future. And no doubt, I think no government or no regulatory body can stop it. So that is why I must say that this is the time for the young generation to work with the metaverse and find out the best possibilities. So it was also the understanding the digital, that is metaverse-based real estate department or real estate business also will be growing very fast. So that is why I should say that in my conclusion remark that it is the time. Definitely, I am also not an expert of this metaverse, but usually as a businessman, I need to know some few of this point. But of course, it is the time for the researcher or the right people, those who are working in this technological adoption, those who are also know that the marketing, influencing, and other factors should be the factor, because every day we know that all of the company, they are trying to add a lot of value addition, and that someone is going to rebranding, someone going to add this lot of things, and there's a lot of this company giving the free tools also to the people for using it, and slowly they also add up the pricing. So anyway, I'm sure that it's a good topics, so a lot of the people can focus on the metaverse in their future. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Professor Sharidan Tatsuno, you are expert for metaverse, AR, and VR. What is your closing remarks for today's session?
I guess I don't worry about the technology is accelerating. In fact, we can't even keep up with it in Silicon Valley. So, I mean, we've tried. It's going to move faster than you think, especially as China comes in. Again, China is going to crash the prices. So I would actually, if you want to work on getting prices down, just cut deals with Chinese vendors, because then you can get everything really cheap. But I think it's going to be driven by young people, because they're the early adopters. And then the problem with the children by themselves, they call it the blind leading the blind problem, that you end up with all these weird scams and weird stuff. So the role of adults is to provide wisdom, guidance, education, training, so they don't go off the rails in the wrong direction. And I think that's the most important thing you can do, is that bringing up young, healthy people who have a very positive, collaborative thing. It's more of a mindset of what kind of future do you want as a society. And the kids can do the technology. I don't worry about that. But again, you want to make sure that you're using it for good, for positive change. Because if you don't, trust me, it's going to go off the rails, and then you'll have a total mess to clean up later. So this is why your leadership right now is crucial for the future of the whole world, actually, because the children learn faster than you can imagine. And so with that, I would like to thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor. Mr. Rafiqul Islam, sir, what's your concluding remarks for today's session?
This is a vast and deep concept. Is there any conclusion today? No. That is, no, I don't have any conclusion. But one thing I would like to mention here, I'm seeking your cooperation, assistance in introducing Metaverse in our training field in Bangladesh, using physical, blended learning, or e-learning system. In that case, I think Mr. Sabur Khan sir can help us or guide us. How do you introduce blended learning or physical system in learning system or blockchain education system in our training institute? I am seeking your cooperation and assistance. This is not an issue that will be concluded today. Metaverse just start the journey. There is no end for it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Dr. Talib, what's your concluding remarks for today's session?
Thank you so much. I want to associate myself with Mr. Rafiqul Islam in saying that there is no conclusion today about this. The only thing that is there is that we need to be working together. That's for sure. Because we have to trust in the future. Now, I'm not very much enthusiastic about coaching our children. I think our children know better than us what to do, Mr. Sheldon. I think so. I think my daughter knows exactly what environmental issues are, much more than I do. When she sees me keep the tap on, the water, when I brush my teeth, she comes and blames me for that. So they're more conscious than we are. They're more aware of the things that we are having to do. So I would trust them. I would trust the future. I trust our children. The only thing is, like it was been said before, that we need to provide opportunities for these children to be the best. And the only opportunity you could do now is provide them with the tools to do the job. The tools are internet and gadgets. They need to have that. Now the developing world needs that, because the developing world is dependent so much on the material aspects of technology. And the material aspects are becoming expensive. I agree with you, China is the key. China is the key because China is moving forward in innovation, and China is the future. It's the biggest market in the world, and it has so much innovation that it's hard to stop. That's the future, definitely. Thank you so much, Mr. Sharif. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Talib, for your continuous support for World Talent Economy Forum. Professor Donald, what's your concluding remarks for today?
Well, I want to mention something that's a little, well, it's not off because every single solitary person has said this. There's a wonderful book called Counterclockwise by a psychologist called Ellen Langer, where she took a group of older people in their 70s and she created, this was in the 70s, so they didn't have the internet. She created an environment where it was their 20 years in their past, and they were told to only talk about things that were 20 years in the past and go back in time, basically. And after a week of doing that, their gait changed, their cholesterol went down, their cognitive abilities went up. And so I would say that adults can learn a lot quicker than they think they can. So don't sell yourself short. I think that what happens with adults is that we have other obligations. And so it's very difficult for us to be able to sit down and concentrate. Like I taught myself GPT-3, which is a language program that is from DeepMind. And I got interrupted every 3 minutes while I was trying to do it. And it's very, very difficult to learn things when that happens. And that happens when you're an adult. So if
We have responsibilities.
yeah, if you look, we have a lot of responsibility. I know that with guitar. Yes, people learn guitar or learn music usually when they're in high school, and they don't have any responsibilities whatsoever, and they can just concentrate completely on it. So anyway, I'm just telling you that don't sell yourself short, and don't sell adults short, because we can learn a lot more than we think we can. So I also just want to just go back to what I said and tell you one more story, and then I'll be finished, which is that I just heard a woman on TikTok telling a little story about how she was a history major, and she said that she was a mediocre student, and she had one encounter with a teacher that turned her into a straight A student, top of her class from then on. And she went in, and the teacher, she said, well, I'm not doing very well. And the teacher said, yes, I know. And she said, well, what can I do to get better? And she pulled a novel off the shelf. And she said, read the first chapter of this novel. And she said, what? It had nothing to do with history. And she said, after she read it, the teacher told her, she said, you need to tell a story. You need to write for every single solitary person, every single thing you do, like the person that you're writing for doesn't know what the topic is. You write things like in bullet lists, like a PowerPoint presentation. And what I'm getting at is that no matter what we do, we need to learn to be able to communicate with other people. We talk and we learn in stories. We teach each other in stories. So when we're trying to develop the metaverse and develop successful organizations and develop successful countries and develop successful communication, we need to listen to each other and understand what the worlds and stories that we're telling each other are, and understand what the way that we're making sense of things. So, because as I said, it has power even on our health and our ability to learn and be in this world. So that's my concluding.
Thank you, sir.
Good.
Thank you.
Very good.
Mr. Marshall, you are a great advocate for developing world. What you want to say today for developing world like India, Bangladesh, Malaysia, Pakistan, Indonesia? What you want to say? What is your views, and how we can collaborate together?
Anybody who's watched this forum with me on it in the past knows that I'm a big advocate for the developing world. I think we need to bring the developing world onto a level playing field with the developed world. I believe it's possible. I think it's done through forums like this. The World Talent Economy Forum is the venue, I believe, to help, at least one of the most important venues, to bring education to people. As anyone who knows and followed me before, I do believe that if the developing world embraces the 17 Sustainability Development Goals of the UN, we will all be in a better position, and that the developing world will become the developed world. And this is an example of the topic of that, where we can bring metaverse and other capabilities. And I think all our speakers spoke directly to the point. It's not just about technology. It's about attitude. It's about the embrace of the values that Dr. Talib has spoken about and the other panelists have spoken about, not just from a political point of view, but technology and manifestation of being able to address the problems that we're addressing right now. The biggest existential threat to the world right now, in my opinion, is the climate crisis. I know that there's a war going on in Ukraine, and Putin has threatened nuclear weapons. Hopefully that doesn't come about. But if that doesn't come about, our biggest threat right now is going to be the climate crisis. There is a climate clock in New York City, not the one in Times Square that counts down for New Year's, but the one that counts down for the climate crisis at Union Square and 14th Street. And it's not good. It's bad news. The IPCC, the National Panel on Climate Crisis from the UN, has given out a report at the beginning of April that says it's good news and bad news. The bad news is we don't have much time left. Just look at the climate clock. The good news is we do have a narrow window of opportunity to change it. And I believe that forums like the World Talent Economy Forum and people such as that are on this panel can help make a difference and can solve the problems for not just the climate crisis, but create a future for our children. And I think, as everybody's pointed out, our children are the future. That's where they're smart, they can adapt, and we need to bring them on board with tools such as Metaverse and things like that. So hopefully everybody will support the World Talent Economy Forum going forward and participate in the programs that Sharif has put on the plate for all of us. I know I'm writing an article for the publication and doing other things as much as I can. I know that everybody else will do too. So again, my hats off to you, Sharif, and to this panel for bringing up a topic such as Metaverse, who might not connect it to the real world, but it is in the real world, and we're all part of that. Thank you all, and thank all the panelists for having me as their guest with them.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sharif.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you. I just want to share with you that we are actually publishing our book, scientific book. We are actually enhancing the capacity of human capitals. Yes, with the help of technology and investment, we can do that. And another important thing is next year, February, we have our special conference on Nikola Tesla technology. It's a real innovations, real technology we want to share with our grassroots level people. Already we are working with 30,000 people from the grassroots level in India, and we are trying to enhancing their capacity with modern science, engineering, and technology. Those who want to publish paper, especially on Tesla innovation, they can publish a paper with us. And beside that, World Talent Economy Forum want to invite developing world to contribute more on research and innovation. Thank you, bye-bye, and take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye, Sharif.
Thank you.
Bye, Sharif.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Thank
See you
you.
again soon.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.